Dear students, the topic of today's lecture is FIA or fluoroimmunoassay. To understand this topic, you must have a prerequisite knowledge of the interaction of antigen and antibody that we have already learned in our previous lecture, that when antigen will bind with their complementary antibodies that will form precipitin bond, and there are some protocol for the formation of precipitin bond. In addition to this, you must have knowledge of RIA and ELISA, the types of RIA, the types of ELISA, and their applications. At the end of this lecture, you will come to know about the introduction, principle, types, limitations, and application of this technique named as fluoroimmunoassay. Now, the question is, what do you understand by fluoroimmunoassay? The fluoroimmunoassay are simply a different type of immunoassay, and the key variable is the biochemical technique used for detecting the binding of the detection antibody and the analyte method. The advantage of a fluorescent detection system has been known for many years. These include higher sensitivity, detection of the analyte, simplified reagent, and simpler assay regions. Several breakthroughs that occurred over the past few years that have enabled the implementation of a fluorescent-based immunoassay system at the point of care. A modern fluorescent-based immunoassay uses as a detection reagent a fluorescent compound that absorbs light or energy in the excitation energy as a specific wavelength and then emits light or energy at different wavelengths. The difference between the wavelength of the excitation light and the emission light is called the Stokes shift. The greater the shift or difference in the wavelength, the less interference there will be by having the excitation light detected as a part of the emission light. Recently, a number of technical improvements have occurred that has enabled the implementation of a high sensitivity immunoassay system. These include the availability of narrow wavelength, low cost light resources, newer, more stable fluorophores that have very wide Stokes shifts, stable solid state light detectors, and microprocessors to process and analyze the data from each and every test. So as usual, on this slide, I have a small animation for you people to make this lecture interactive. I have taken this animation from the YouTube channel and the link has already been pasted over here. So let's start with the animation. This animation is based on the fluoroimmunoassay technique. See, this is a sample which has to be checked whether a particular antigen are present in this or not. Suppose I have taken a sample in which the bacterial antigen are present. Now we will use microsyringe to fill this sample solution in a microtiter plate. You can see here, this is a microtiter plate. We will fill all the wells with a sample solution only by leaving this first row as background. This is positive control and this is negative control. Now we will fill one well of the first row by positive control and rest the well by negative control. Now we have added negative control in these vacant wells. Leave this for incubation at room temperature. Now these are the primary antibodies and these are the secondary antibodies labeled with fluorophores. We will take these primary antibodies that are complementary to the antigen we have taken in the sample. We will add primary antibody in the positive reference and the negative reference. Now we will incubate this plate for half an hour at room temperature. Now these primary antibodies will bound with the antigen. We will wash it to remove unbounded antibodies Now secondary antibodies have been added that has already been pre-coated with the fluorophore. Now again we'll leave this plate for half an hour at room temperature. Now these all antibodies are linked with the fluorophore that can be viewed under the UV visible spectrophotometer. This is the software system you can see here. These are the control. This was the positive control, negative control. The fluorescent spot indicates that the antigen has bound to the antibodies at that spot. The identity of the antigen can be interfered from knowledge of the specificity of the antibodies at that particular spot. This is positive control, this is negative control, and these are the positivity identified sample solution. Means this solution has antigen of that bacteria. Rest don't have bacterial antigen. Or you can say these are the different samples. This is all about this animation. Now I will discuss fluoroimmunoassay in the next slides in detail. I hope you will enjoy the lecture. Thank you. Now what is fluoroimmunoassay or immunofluorescence? Immunofluorescence is a technique that allows the visualization of a specific antigen by binding a specific antibody chemically conjugated with a fluorescent dye such as fluorescein isothianate or rhodamine. Fluorescein isothianate is green in color, whereas the rhodamine is red in color. These colors can be visualized under UV visible spectrophotometer. In this technique, the specific antibodies are labeled with a compound FITC that makes them glow an apple green color when observed microscopically under UV light. And we know the range of UV light is 200 to 400 nanometer. So you should understand that to perform this technique, we also need a UV visible spectrophotometer. Now we will understand the term fluorescence and phosphorescence by using this Jablonski diagram. You can see here this is a standard Jablonski diagram. This is S0. This is a ground state on which the electron resides when the electron is in lower energy state. After absorption of energy, the electron jumps from ground state to excited state. They can jump from ground state to any of the singlet excited state without changing its spin. You can see here from S0 the electron can jump from S0 to S1, from S0 to S2 and from S0 to S3. These lines are the different vibrational levels. Now in this diagram the electron is present in its higher energy state, means the electron will be unstable. So to get stable, the electron will release the extra amount of energy that the electron has already been absorbed and will try to come on its ground state. So this removal of energy may happen in different ways. The electron may emit its energy through vibrational level. This is known as the internal conversion. This is nothing related with the phosphorescence or fluorescence. Now coming to the main point, what is phosphorescence? When electron come from singlet excited state to lower excited state, in this process the electron release energy in the form of light, and this phenomena is known as the fluorescence. In fluorescence, the electron doesn't change its spin. See, now what is phosphorescence? See, suppose your electron is present in S1, which is singlet excited state. Now the electron will slowly changes its spin and come to the triplet excited state. Right? This is triplet excited state. You can see that the energy level of S1 and T1 is almost similar. Now what will happen? The electron is still unstable because the energy is still more than the ground state. The electron will tend to come to the S0. So the electron will slowly changes its spin again to come to the S0, and during this process the electron emits energy in the form of phosphorescence. Now what is the basic difference between the fluorescence and the phosphorescence is the fluorescence is a relatively fast process, and when we remove the light of source the fluorescence stops, whereas the phosphorescence is relatively slow process and this will happen up to some milliseconds even after removal of the light of source. This is the explanation and difference between fluorescence and phosphorescence. Now you can understand that how fluorophore works when we use them in immunoassay techniques. Now the compound that we used in FIA is known as fluorochrome. The fluorochrome can be defined as the dyes that absorb ultraviolet rays and emit visible light. This process is known as fluorescence. The fluorochrome commonly used in immunofluorescence are fluorescein isothiocyanate, which is green in color, and tetramethylrhodamine isothiocyanate, which is red in color. If you remember, we have learned about direct ELISA as well as indirect ELISA. Similarly, this FIA fluoroimmunoassay or immunofluorescence is also of two types. The one is direct immunofluorescence and the second one is indirect immunofluorescence. So let's first understand what is direct immunofluorescence. The direct immunofluorescence uses a single antibody that is chemically linked to a fluorophore. The antibody recognizes the target molecule and binds to it, and the fluorophore it carries can be detected via microscopy. This direct immunofluorescence technique is used to detect antigen in clinical specimens using a specific fluorochrome labeled antibody. The steps involve are fixation of smear on the slide, treating with labeled antibody, incubation, washing to remove unbound excess labeled antibody, and visualization under fluorescent microscope. See, when viewed under fluorescent microscope, the field is dark and the area with bound antibody looks like fluorescent green in color. Now let's understand direct immunofluorescence by using this diagram. You can see this is a titer plate, micro titer plate, on which antigen has been bounded, and then we have added fluorescent coated antibodies. If the antigen complementary to this antibody are present in the microtiter plate, these antibodies will get bound to that particular antigen, and then we will wash our microtiter plate. Unbounded antibodies will wash out. You can see on the left column the representation has been given when the antigen of the complementary antibodies are present, whereas on the right hand side column there is no such antigen present in the microtiter plate. On the right hand side, this fluorescein coated antibody has been bounded to this microtiter plate, and even after washing, this antibody will remain intact to the antigen, which will give green color under UV microscope. Whereas you can see on the right hand side column, there is no such antigen present in the microtiter plate, and the fluorescein bounded antibody will wash out during the wash, and this microtiter plate will not give any such color that confirm the absence of a particular antigen. Some limitations associated with the direct immunofluorescence are its lower signal. This is generally of higher cost, less flexibility, and difficulties with the labeling procedure when commercially labeled direct conjugates are unavailable. These are the some limitations associated with the direct immunofluorescence. Now coming to the second type, that is indirect immunofluorescence. In this technique, a different primary antibody is used for each target protein. Variable part of primary antibodies bind to a specific part of target protein. The secondary antibodies binds to the constant part of the primary antibody. Therefore, a sample of the same batch of secondary antibody can bind to many different primary antibodies. Now, let's understand this indirect immunofluorescence using this diagram. Again, we have taken two types of experiment. On the left hand side, we have taken the microtiter plate in which the respective antigen are present, whereas on the right hand side column, there is no such antigen present in microtiter plate. You can see first we have added unbounded antibodies to this microtiter plate, to both the microtiter plate. In this plate, the antigen are present, so these primary antibodies will bound with the respective antigen, whereas in this microtiter plate, there will be no antibody present after washing. See, after washing, the unbounded antibody will wash away from this microtiter plate, whereas it will remain intact if the primary antibody are present in the well. Now you can see that in indirect immunofluorescence, two or more antibodies, secondary antibodies, can bind with primary antibodies. This will lead to the high intense color which will be observed under UV spectrophotometer. This is how the indirect fluoroimmunoassay works. Again, some limitations of indirect immunofluorescence are the potential for cross-reactivity and the need to find primary antibodies that are not raised in the same species or of different isotopes. When performing multiple labeling experiments, sample with endogenous immunoglobulin may be create some problem. Now, what are the applications? The immunofluorescence can be used on tissue section, cultured cell lines or individual cells, and may be used to analyze the distribution of protein and small biological and non-biological molecules. This can also be used in combination with other non-antibody methods of fluorescent staining. For example, use of DAPI, which is 4,6-di-amidino-2-phenyl indole, is a fluorescent stain that binds strongly to AT rich region in DNA to label DNA. A is the adenine and T is the thymine bases. You all know these are the basic terms used for DNA. In addition, this technique have more biological application that include evaluation of cells in suspension, cultured cell tissue beads, It is also play a key role in the diagnosis of autoimmune disorder. These are the references from where I have taken material to prepare this lecture. Wilson and Walker is a very famous book. The title of this book is Principle and Technique of Biochemistry and Molecular Biology. In addition to this book, I have referred some online sites like microbiology notes, etc. All the discussion and theory will be taken in offline and online class mode. Thank you so much for your patience. Bye.